In this video, we will be discussing the NSMutableArray class. NSMutableArray is the Objective-C class for managing mutable collections of objects and is a subclass of NSArray. This allows us to modify array items in place without needing to create a new array. There are only two ways to create an NSMutableArray. The first is a class method, ArrayWithCapacity, and the second is an instance method, initWithCapacity. Both of these methods set an initial capacity for the array. But the array is not limited to this size. It will grow and expand in size as needed. And as we have done before, if we create an object using alloc and init, then we need to release it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Just say b release. Now to add objects to an NSMutableArray, we do it just as we did with NSMutableString. We are modifying the array in place, and we use the addObject method and give it an object to add. We are taking the mutable array A that we created at the top with ArrayWithCapacity, and we're adding three objects, Martin, Cindy, and Hyman. Let's take a look at these in the console and see what our array looks like. So I'm going to create a log, and if you type log, L-O-G, and then hold down the control key and hit period, it'll go ahead and autocomplete your NSLog full statement for you. I'm going to put in the %@ symbol, and then I'm going to pass in as an argument A. So I'm going to run this with Command R. And now we can see our array holds Martin, Cindy, and Hyman. Another way that we can add items to a mutable array is by adding an entirely different array to it. I'll go ahead and delete that. I'll paste in this method. So we're going to create a regular NSArray, and we're going to use the ArrayWithObjects method. And this time we're going to use strings Stefan, Shane, Ray, and Hamish. We're going to terminate it with nil, and then we're just going to say A, add objects from array, and give it this array. Now if we print out a log statement, we can see that our array now contains all the items that we've added, including the additional array that we combined with our original array. We can also add items using InsertObjectAtIndex. And to do this, we simply say A, insert object. We're going to give it the string Sarah, and we're going to say insert this at index 2. Let's take a look at that. And now we can see that Sarah was inserted at the second index position, and the other array items just were pushed down. There are a few ways that we can remove objects from a mutable array. Let's take a look at those. The first one is to remove last object. That'll just take the last object out of the array and just remove it. Remove object, and we tell it which object to remove. It'll find the first one that's in the array. The next one is to remove object at index. So we'll specify a specific index to remove. And then the last one is to remove object identical to. Now we saw in NSArray what object identical to means. So that is going to remove an object that is identical to another object that are in the same place in memory. So we'll go ahead and run this with Command R. And now we see that our array has been reduced to Martin, Hyman, Shane, and Ray. There are a few more methods we can use to remove objects from an array. Let's take a look at those now. The first one we'll look at is remove objects in array. So what's happening here is we create an array. We're going to create a new array, objects to remove. We're going to use the ArrayWithObjects method. We're going to give it Martin and Hyman, terminate it with a nil, and then we're going to say A, remove objects in this array. So take all the objects that are in objects to remove, go through our other array, which is A, and just remove all of those that match. Let's take a look at this. Now we're down to two people, Shane and Ray. Our next method is going to be remove objects in range, and we'll have to feed it a range. So for this to work, I'm going to need to get rid of a few of these that we've already deleted so that we'll have room for this. When we run this, it's going to remove two items, Hyman and Sarah. Currently, Hyman is in the second position, but then we went and moved Sarah into the second position, which pushed Hyman up one. So then it'll be Sarah be second, Hyman will be the third position. So let's go ahead and run this. And we can see that it's Martin, Cindy. We lose Hyman and Sarah, and then Stefan, Shane, Ray, and Hamish. And the last method we're going to use for remove is remove all objects. And this will just empty an array. So now when I run this, there should be nothing in the array. And there we go, we have an empty array. There are times when you'll want to replace objects that are in an array with another object. Let's look at those now. I'm just going to highlight all this code and replace it with our replace object at index with object. So what this is going to do is it's going to look for the 6th position in the array and replace that with Haas. Let's go ahead and run it. And we can see that now in our 6th position, instead of having Hamish, it was replaced with Haas. And we have one last method that we're going to go over in the NS Mutable Array class. And this is set array. We're just going to set the array with an entirely new array. So up at the top, we created an array. We added objects to it. We added objects from another array to it. Then we replaced an object in it. Now we're going to create an entirely different array and just replace the entire array. So here we've created new array. We've used array with objects using the objects Linda, Vera, and Peggy, terminated with nil. And now we say A, set your array to new array. Now when we run this, it should say Linda, Vera, and Peggy. I'll run it, and there we go. We've covered most of the methods in NS Mutable Array. There are a few more, you can go check those out, but we've covered the bulk of the ones that we'll be using throughout this series. In our next video, we'll be covering NS Dictionary.